Hi, I'm Kane Vincent Dyer, and today we are going to be judging the authenticity of bank robbery scenes. I committed over 100 bank robberies in a period of almost 2 years. After turning myself in, I decided to form a coaching company that helps people transform their lives. This is so real. It typically happens your first time or two. It takes a second for him to pump himself up. He has on this helmet, so he doesn't need a mask. He doesn't look like he'd be coming in to rob necessarily. It looks like he just kept his helmet on, which guys do all the time.
Everybody get down on the floor! Yeah, get up!
I can really relate to this. Him wearing that backpack. I would sometimes either wear a backpack or a duffel bag strapped around the front, and you can still have the control of your hands. He has tape. He doesn't want those gloves coming off, so obviously he's really conscious of not leaving any type of fingerprints.
Going over! Going over!
It almost shows most the desperation that he went into this bank that is secure with glass and everything like that, but he was still so desperate that it didn't stop him. Because of the glass, he's got to throw it over to them, and they could put any kind of device in that bag. They just blow through that red light with all those cars coming. I don't think a police officer would do that, just because you're putting a lot more people at risk. I would actually rate this a 9.
All right, everybody, hands up, heads down!
This vault that looks like no one could ever get in except for probably the US military. Yes, they do have very intricate lock safes and things like that, time lock safes, things that are really hard to get into. But a lot of time during business hours, they will keep certain safes open just so the employees can have access. And if it were like this, I would pass. Unless I found in one of their manuals or knew that they would keep this door open between certain times. I learned everything. So at every bank I went into, I knew whether it was going to have a safe such as the one that's in this scene or regular open doors. Could I get into that back then where things were more manual? Oh yeah, it would have taken a considerable amount of time to break into that. That's not like a 3 or 4 minute deal.
On the ground, stay on the ground!
When having a weapon in there like that, unless you have a security guard that was armed, you got to keep in mind, if you shoot that shotgun and he hits that bank robbery suspect, those rounds are probably exiting the perpetrator and going straight into the bank customer or the bank employee.
Bus driver. What bus driver?
That school bus doesn't have any damage on it, and it just crashed through a cement and stone building. And if you remember, it had to go up the steps because when they robbed the building, they went up the steps. So definitely a 1. We have to keep in mind that this movie is supposed to be over the top.
He's gonna kill us all. Unless you can give me a giant wad of cash.
I have a plan.
I didn't start robbing banks because I wanted money. I started robbing banks out of desperation in order to pay off a debt that a very dear relative to me had incurred to a criminal organization. When people do a solo robbery and they're trying not to be seen, they would hand the teller a note. They would probably smile at people in line. This is exactly how they would approach it. Someone's like, why is she moving that slow? She's probably still processing. What they are trying to do is try to give you money that has some kind of detector in it, some kind of tracer or die pack. And we see the stack. That stack looks a lot bigger. It looks like something he should take. It could be what they call the bait money, a stack that bank employees have put to the side, and with those are die packs, tracers. We can say he makes the mistake of showing his face, but most guys that go in solo like that, they often do that, and they hit these smaller banks, and they just hope that the banks don't really link up and they won't get that much attention, but they will go in and show their actual faces. Here we see him being captured on video. So when I did all of my bank robberies, it was in the end of '99, going into 2000. So these old cameras used to be really grainy, so they would have a lot of them. There are even things along doors. And when someone passes it, the employees are trained to look where he lines up on that. Absolutely a 10. Absolutely a 10.
Fucking away from the camera! Go, go, go! Everybody away!
They know exactly what they're doing. You can tell by the way they move, where they go. They know the layout of this place.
Away from the computer!
Bank robberies that are done by a lot of different gangs, this is how they go in and this is how they operate, just with brute force and sheer fear.
When's the time left set for?
9 o'clock.
Oh my God, it was 8:15.
He asked her something very specific about the bank, which he already knew. I would ask a bank employee a question just because I knew the answer and I wanted to see if they were going to be straight with me or not. I wanted to see if they were going to be nervous, how they were going to respond to the question I was asking. He just wanted to see if she was going to cooperate. Bleaching is something I haven't seen done before. I know why he's doing it, to get rid of all type of evidence. You know, once you put bleach on anything, everything just kind of dissipates. This movie is a 10 for the realistic way that these guys are just that aggressive. Unfortunately, you have a lot of guys that go in and that's how they do it. The camera's already got them in, on video. So why even use a mask at that point? Should have gotten out of the car, gone straight in with the mask on, or not used anything.
We want to hurt no one. We're here for the bank's money, not your money. Your money is insured by the federal government. You're not going to lose a dime. Think of your families. Don't risk your life. Don't try and be a hero.
The energy is so on point. How they talk, how they walk, how they move. Even the customers, just the fear that's there. This is how a lot of banks will keep the money when it comes in, because they're still coming from, basically the factory.
Far East National Bank.
The silent alarm is actually going off as they're leaving, which is what employees are actually trained to do. It's less chance of the cops getting there and then having a hostage situation. I would actually give it about a 7. A lot of bank robbers, especially their first time or something like that, out of desperation, they will just take whatever they can put in. I've heard about bank robbers going inside and forgetting to take anything to collect the money, but putting everything, trying to put everything in a t-shirt, He wasn't prepared for that, which gave him pause, but then he had to jump back into that zone of getting them out of there. So I like that they kind of did that, where they give him this human quality, like, whoa, I didn't expect that, because he's just the driver.
We got a hero.
The guy who's engaging them has a Marine Corps hat on. That's a situation that could definitely happen. And that was something that was always on my mind. If there's going to be another guy in there like me, he was a Marine like myself. A lot of violence happening. And it's easy from the outside to say, okay, that wouldn't happen. But heck, that happened. It happened to me where I had a guy who was probably former military or something come at me, tell me to stop. And I followed the command because it just wasn't worth physically harming someone for me. I'm going to give it a 7.
See the man with the briefcase?
Yes.
That's my partner. He has a gun in there. If you don't do exactly what I tell you, or if you give me any kind of a problem at all, I'm going to look over at my partner and he's going to shoot your Mr. Gwendon between the eyes.
I have done that. I've looked back at the door from which I came in and told an imaginary accomplice there to make sure everyone keeps their head down. And there was never anyone there.
You're doing great. Just smile, Loretta, so you don't look like you're being held up. You got a very pretty smile.
I would say things like that. Even if I yelled louder than everyone else, I would tell the person that I was trying to get to do whatever I'm trying to get them to do. I would be much more calm with them versus screaming at them. He's disarming her fear, so it's not bringing any attention to them. That method is a very, very common method. People will do things like that, especially if it's a smaller bank and they think that the news isn't going to travel. The rating I'm going to give this picture is a 10. This scene here is very high tech. This isn't a normal bank robbery, right? There are guys in the military and certain groups around the world that can absolutely do this. I have gone into banks that have safe locks and vaults and time lock vaults and stuff like that. But there is a bank in Spain that operates in this way where if certain parts of it are triggered, it will flood the actual safe, which holds all the gold. A typical bank robbery, you're working within a certain construct of time, and trying to get in a vault like that, even if you have the skill set to get into it, it would probably take you as long to get in that vault as the sentence you would get for getting into it. I'll give it a 10 for entertainment. I'm gonna give it a 1 on the skill set that anyone would have to go do that.